This is Diane Cece with the East Norwalk Neighborhood Association. We also have Charles D. Bisegli, volunteer extraordinaire. He'll be co-hosting tonight, and also sharing a video that he's put together for us as well. Okay, so we'll call the meeting to order. And again, the meeting is being recorded. A couple of just quick announcements. We've had some technical glitches lately. The gremlins seem to be after me here, but we recently found out that there's been some lapse in the ability to sign up for our newsletters using the link through our website. So we are still working on that. If you or someone you know or a neighbor or friend has submitted a request to sign up for our newsletters and they're not getting them, if you could please ask them to email us at info@eastnorwalk.org, and we will get them signed up promptly. And then hopefully we can get that web sign up link working again shortly. We've also made some improvements, just so you know, in our website and email security. So we're keeping up with the times there to make sure that we have all the latest technology. And I think we left this as an open item at the last meeting, but based on volunteers. But the shredding event is a go for this year. It's our 5th annual community shredding event. It will be on Saturday, April 20th, and we'll be doing it for 2 hours this year from 9 to 11, and again at the East Norwalk Library. So we encourage you to, if you can volunteer, that would be great. And if you have some shredding materials, then come and join us there. We've put out more details on that in a flyer in our email, and we'll be posting as we get closer to April 20th. We don't have any guest speakers tonight, and for tonight's business, we're going to be using current business, which is basically talking about the Norden Place application. There are 2 applications that are before the city right now. One is called a subdivision, and the other is a site plan review. And I will explain those in a couple of minutes. We're going to show a video. I'm going to go over some more details, and then we're going to have a hopefully productive and constructive brainstorming session. Before I leave here on the screen, I just want to mention that some of you have already seen as a part of the subdivision that there is a wholesale nursery that's looking to move into Norden. The reason why you haven't seen that as a separate application, either as a special permit or site plan review, is because that particular use, a nursery, is actually allowed as of right, meaning it doesn't have to come before the commission and there's no hearing required. What some of you may have noticed, though, is that operator actually started building out and preparing for moving there ahead of the actual actual subdivision of the parcel. But we'll get to that in a second when we talk about Norden. Okay, so in terms of Norden, what we call the preliminary review process has begun. That starts once the applicants file their applications with the city. That is the time frame. That is the action also that starts a statutory time clock under which the city must begin a review process, and then there are a number of kind of timestamps after that when the city must act upon them. I think it's worthwhile to note here again so that people understand our involvement with this versus when this was applied for back in February, is that despite the fact that East Norwalk Neighborhood Association and all of you folks have been following this parcel very closely for the past few years, since the warehouse and distribution center application was withdrawn, we repeatedly asked city staff to make sure that they keep us apprised of any pending applications, and if they would please give us a heads up before anything got filed, so that we would have an opportunity as ENNA board to be able to meet with the applicants and their attorneys to review the project, maybe get some, any of our concerns on the table, get things modified, before the application goes in. But neither Director Steve Kleppen nor the applicant's attorney, Liz Suchy, gave us the courtesy of doing that. So the first time that ENNA saw this application was actually when it was filed and posted. On March 6th, the Planning and Zoning Commission conducted a brief review of the application for the site plan review, which is the Metropolitan Transit Authority's application to have a transportation maintenance facility there. And there's more information on that, of course, in the emails that we sent. We call it it was a preliminary review, but it was even more brief than that because this particular review only had one purpose. It was to have the applicant and their attorney provide enough information to the commission for them to authorize the city to hire a third-party, whoops, that's a typo there, a third-party traffic consultant for a peer review. Because of the anticipated traffic and the type of traffic and vehicles that this application is expected to, this operation is expected to generate, the city requires a peer consultant review, and the commission must approve it for the city to hire them. Another quick note on that, even though the city is hiring the consultant, it's actually the applicant that's required to pay all the fees associated with that. So there's no cost to the taxpayers when these peer reviews are being done. We do have the video of that application process. It's about 9 minutes long. It's an excerpt, and it also has some highlights that Charles did for us in terms of things we should be aware of. And we're going to actually be showing that video tonight very shortly, and then we're going to have the discussion and the brainstorming. Okay. So the first question is then, what everyone wanted to know is, what is this public hearing on this Wednesday at 6 p.m.? And the public hearing this Wednesday is only for the subdivision application for that parcel. It's not for the actual use of the MTA site. The subdivision has to come before the commission because right now it's a single parcel that's owned by one operator and basically one use. And they need to be able to subdivide this property so that they can lease and or sell portions of it to other operators for either approved uses or uses that would come in as a special permit or a site plan review, which would be the MTA permit. So the subdivision application comes before the P&Z Commission this Wednesday at 6 p.m. and they'll simply be looking at the parcel, reviewing the engineering layouts of it and the civil plans, and then voting on it. One of the things that is important to understand with a subdivision application is that, and you can see down here the legalese that comes from it, the commission acts in an administrative capacity. So there's no discretion involved in terms of actually reviewing this. And because of that, you'll see highlighted down here, as a part of their review, all they're doing is making sure that it complies with the regulations of a subdivision. Now, for all intent and purposes, you can assume that city staff, meaning Steve Kleppen, Brian Baker, and their team, have already reviewed this. And generally speaking, they won't pass anything on to the commission that they've determined hasn't met the regulations, because then that would require some sort of an exception or a variance. And the important thing here is that because of the type of review a subdivision requires, they cannot legally consider the off-site traffic conditions, municipal services required, or the effect on property values in the area. If the application itself meets the existing regulations, then the commission by law must approve it. So I know there was a lot of confusion about this, and a lot of people were getting prepared to speak at this public hearing. You certainly can speak at the public hearing. You can express concerns about either subdividing this parcel or the potential uses. If you get into speaking about a specific use of the subdivision, though, the commission chair, I suspect, will say that that item is not before them yet, and they're only considering the subdivision. Okay, a little bit confusing on those stuff. So when we open it up, if you have questions or if you have a burning question now, you can put it in chat, and I think Charles will be able to see that, since I can't see anything but my presentation here. Okay, so having said that, then the important part of this then becomes the site plan review and the public hearing. A site plan review is one of the mechanisms that's used in zoning for the commission to actually review the use of the parcel. And that's when they start to take a look at all of the traffic, the environmental impact, the economic impact, etc. A site plan review, though, does not, let me back up for a second. So that site plan review will actually happen in phases in terms of information being provided to the commission. So we expect that it's going to continue through March and April. And as the applicant and the city post more documents and departmental sign-offs, we'll post those as well. But you can also keep an eye on the city website. Part of that site plan review then is going to be awaiting the traffic consultant peer review. So they've already hired the traffic consultant to take a look at the traffic study, and when they file their report with city staff, then that will be reviewed with the commission. According to Steve Kleppen, he's anticipating a public hearing on this application, and probably at their Wednesday, May 1st, Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. But there's a big but here. Because this is a site plan review and not a special permit application, the holding of a public hearing is completely at the discretion of the commission. It is not required in the same way that a special permit application is. And so while we expect the commission to require a public hearing on this based on the size, the location, the controversy, the potential traffic impacts, there's nothing that requires them to do that. And so because of that, we are encouraging residents to follow the application along with us and on your own, and to begin at least drafting your emails now to request a public hearing, that the commissioners deem this necessary for a public hearing. And in line with that, we just want to remind everyone again, because this is also confusing, but technically you can't communicate with the commission directly, especially once it seems imminent that there'll be a public hearing, or once an application itself is under review. All communications go to the commission through city staff, and so those the emails get sent in to Steve Kleppen and then addressed to the commissioners. And you should all have his emails, I believe, but it's skleppen@norwalkct.gov. Okay, so just to recap, the site, the plan for the subdivision comes before them on Wednesday. We're making the assumption right now that it meets all the technical requirements and the regulations, and that the commission will be required to approve that. And then the one that we'll really be interested in is the actual site plan review for the MTA. Okay, so at this point, what we'd like to do, Charles, I don't know if there's anything important in chat, but what I'd like to do is I can stop share, and then you can take that and play. We're going to play a brief video. It is 9 minutes.
This is 2024-14 SPR Norwalk Center LLC, 10 Norden Place, District 3, Block 17, Lot 40, Unit A. Use of plus or minus 113,500 square feet of an existing building and plus or minus 155,000 square feet of the site for transportation, maintenance, terminal use. And again, the action here is to authorize traffic peer review only These are existing buildings.
For the record, Liz Succi, partner at Carmody, Torrance, Sandak, and Hennessy, 1055 Washington Boulevard in Stamford. As Mr. Schulman indicated, this is 10 Norden Place, East Norwalk. It's a 37-acre parcel. To the Norden Place is to the west, the Metro North Railroad tracks are to the south. Access drive to the Avalon parking and development is to the north, and then Avalon is to the east. 3-lot subdivision is before you in 2 weeks, and that is to divide the parcel into 3 lots. A 1-acre lot, which would be for DOT, a 3-acre lot, which eventually would be for Corville Nurseries, since the Corville Nurseries is moving from its location South Norwalk to make way for the South Norwalk School. And the remainder of the property would be for the existing building, the parking lots, the data center. That's before you in 2 weeks. The site plan review application that we're discussing tonight was submitted on or about the 14th of February. Neighbors were notified within 10 days as is required. And that is to allow the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, MTA, to occupy about 113,000 square feet of the existing building, and also occupy the majority of the parking lot on the eastern side of that building, which there are 3 lots right now. They're blocked off with boulders. Those 3 parking lots would be used by the MTA for the storage of material and equipment. There's also part of the proposal also includes parking of vehicles for MTA on the site to use in their various the needs that MTA would have up and down its line. The proposal considers approximately 150 employees to come to the site on a daily basis, in and out of the site. Traffic report has been submitted by Ty and Bond, and Craig Yanis is here tonight. Akiva Cobre is on the line. He is a representative of Norwalk Center, LLC, which is the owner, along with Eric Lindquist, the civil engineer on the project, Craig Benarove, who is a co-applicant, and I think that's about it. One other thing I want to mention, there is a small wetland pocket, well, small comparative to the size of this project and this property. There are wetlands on the southeastern corner of the property and a watercourse. An application has been filed with the Conservation Commission in connection solely with the subdivision, as the activity that is proposed near to the wetlands or watercourse is there's no new regulated activity proposed in or near the wetlands or within the upland review area. So no wetland application was required in connection with this site plan application. No changes to the building. There are no additions, exterior changes, but from some minor parking area creation, removal of some parking areas. And that's generally the long and short of this application at this time.
Attorney Succi, do you know the type of vehicles that Metro North is going to be using going in and out of the site?
There are a variety of vehicles, and I don't have that with me this evening, but we can certainly share that with you in more detail the next time you meet. But Craig, I don't know if you can share that quickly. We had talked about that earlier.
Yeah, there's a variety of equipment and buildings and vehicles that will be stored on the site. You can see on the site plan that Eric has up on the screen the different parking areas they have. So essentially the way it works is 6 different divisions will be within the property, and they'll have daily work activities. So they'll come to the site in their own vehicle. They'll get ready, they'll get their materials, they'll get their vehicle, and they'll drive out to the site in the middle of the day and then come back in the afternoon. So that's kind of the operation. They have a variety of trucks that can drive on the rails. They have a few dump trucks, a few buses, and we can provide some of that information. The biggest vehicle that will be on the site is tractor trailer delivery once or twice per week. And that's part of our application. That's detailed in the traffic study. So everything can be fit within the site and within these parking areas.
Mr. Chairman, we'll provide you with a specific detail on the size of the trucks and general quantities of those various trucks and other vehicles that will come to the site. Happy to do so.
Thank you.
Liz, I have a quick question. Who's has the 150 employees?
MTA. Metropolitan Transport, Metro North, MTA, though that is the entity that's going to lease the space, and their employees will be coming in and out of this property for various interior activities and for various off-site activities that MTA has to handle on its rails. Those MTA employees.
And what about the garden center?
That is separate and distinct. That's not part of this application, but that's Corville Nurseries, and that will occupy about a 3-acre site once the subdivision is before you and hopefully approved.
Oh, I see.
In that
Okay,
area.
so-
If
all
you've
right.
driven by the site, you may see that there's some work underway to create the areas for Corville Nurseries to start working, and that's just site work in anticipation of a permit being issued for their operation.
So your only application is for MTA then?
Exactly.
Okay, sorry. All right.
Attorney Suchi, there's the way that it generally works. I assume, 150 people come, but it's not everyone gets their own vehicle and goes out. I imagine they work in crews and double, triple, quadruple up as they go out. Is that right?
That's in some measure, yes. They'll come in their own vehicles, but some crews will go out together. As Craig mentioned, there are at least a few buses, smaller vans, and others that people will travel together to job sites, or they'll go individually. But it's not, I don't believe it's a 1-for-1, but again, that information will make sure that you have specifics on how the crews will work, how they will come and go, and what other information we can provide in terms of the employee use of the site. Happy to do so.
Now, you're using a lot of office space as well. Will there be a significant number of people who will come to the site and work there all day and go home at night?
There will be some. We'll get better information, clarify that from NTA to give you a sense of how many will remain on site. Certainly some supervisors and others in our management roles will remain on site. Those who are doing fabrication or small light manufacturing will remain on site.
I think it will be important to us and important to the community as well.
Sure, happy to.
Thank you.
Is the site going to be handling like repairs of those vehicles like en masse, or is it just more storage and the building is going to be used just for sort of office work?
As I understand it, it's not a facility for the maintenance and repair of the vehicles that staff members take to go to job sites. It's for them to park these vehicles when they're not being used overnight, and as a transportation maintenance facility where folks come, they pick up their truck, they get their equipment, they go to the site. We could clarify that, but I don't think that's a portion of this. If there are some minor repairs necessary for vehicles, that would be undertaken, but this isn't a vehicle repair facility for Metro North.
That's what I was trying to get at. That's what I was trying to
That's the
understand.
question. No.
All right. Then we will look forward at future date to actually, I guess there'll be a number of applications, one for the division and one for the actual work itself.
Okay, there we go. I think that was the end there. So, and then essentially they voted to go ahead and approve to hire the traffic consultant. Let's answer a couple of comments in the chat first, and then just so everyone knows, this video that we just showed, you can watch it. It was a little fuzzy on my screen, but I think that's because of my old computer, but you can watch it again at your leisure. We posted it in our email yesterday, and it's also, we have a YouTube channel. So if you go to our YouTube channel, then you can watch it there again, and you can watch it in its entirety as well on the city website. So what we're going to be looking to do tonight is, I see there's some questions in chat. One of the brainstorm exercise we're going to be doing shortly is going to be starting to compile the initial list of questions, comments, suggestions, and concerns that we want to get into the city ahead of the actual commission review. So it's the type of thing that we want to start funneling into staff and the commission, and then they can get the questions answered either by the by staff answering them or by the applicant and their team of engineers and consultants to answer them for us. Okay, Charles, so in chat, we have, what do we have here? Let me see if I can hop over here, and then we'll continue going. one of the questions was the language that I quoted in the legal brief regarding the subdivisions. That was a part of the brief that was filed by Attorney Succi as part of the application. That is not unusual for the applicant's attorney to cite case law and to provide guidance to the commission on reminding them exactly what they can consider and not consider as part of their deliberations and their vote. And they often do that to kind of protect themselves because they want to make sure the commission is acting in a manner that doesn't result in a potential appeal of their decision. The current zoning there, I believe MTA use would require a special permit. Okay, so that's a good point. So this application came in just ahead of the changing in the zone regulations that were effective on February 19th. There was, ENNA had requested that this particular use be removed from that parcel altogether. At one point, it was still in the regulations, but requiring a special permit. And when I looked at the regulations recently, I'm not sure if it actually got pulled or not. So it's one of the questions that we have for Steve Kleppen. But at this point, it's basically a moot point because the application was filed on February 14th. And the regulations that dictate a review of an application go directly related to the date it was timestamped in the Planning and Zoning Department. Okay, and then we have another question from Diana because of the products and all the materials that are there that arrived recently in conjunction with stuff that looks like it may be for MPA, and then the stuff with the nursery. So just as a reminder, there's a portion of that parcel that is leased by the DOT for the walk bridge project. So I think, I'm not sure if these are MPA related materials, where they are on the site, or if they're related to all of the walk bridge reconstruction parcel. It's something that we can certainly find out. But I would say that I don't think it's a good idea for applicants to start to do build outs and be able to use a property based on their assumption that something is going to be approved. In the case of the nursery, however, because the subdivision cannot be denied, and because their use is what's called basically over the counter or as of right, any nursery could operate there today. In fact, the current owners of the property could have opened up a wholesale nursery there at any time they wanted. So it's not unusual then, based on that the nursery would be in there and starting to get their facility ready. It's certainly not ideal though, and it's something that we don't really want to see happen in the future. I think at the very least the subdivision should have been approved, even if it's a fait accompli. I want to make another quick note on the nursery though. So the application for the nursery, it's our understanding that they operate as a wholesale nursery because they have a retail facility elsewhere. But according to Steve Kleppen, they do have a portion of their operation where they were in South Norwalk before they had to make way for the new school, where they do some retail operation. And I think that their reply to him was 80% wholesale and 20% retail, but the operation is not very large to begin with. They also provided the number of trucks in and out. They didn't really designate the nature of the trucks, but we do have some more information on it. But it does seem to be definitely a less impactful use than something else that could have gone there. And of course, anything that's kind of bringing greenery and stuff into the area, is good, even if it's, temporary and it's for sale. But we'll get some more information on it, even though it is going to be approved. And we definitely want to get some more information on what the component is of the retail operation there, so that we get an understanding of whether or not there'll be Saturday and Sunday operations, and an additional amount of cars in and out.
Okay, Judy has
Yeah.
her hand up.
Okay.
Accept the prompt.
Right. I keep, my only concern about this is that it's a slippery slope. I mean, I've seen other rail maintenance yards and they are dirty. They attract all sorts of, miscreants and stuff. I don't understand how 150 employees are going to be, how are they're policing how many people will be there.
Right.
And this, at first, I thought the MTA was going to own the thing, and they're only leasing it. So there's
Okay,
no
Judy, Judy, if I can just stop you there for a minute, because this is one of the things that we want to do in our kind of little brainstorming exercise. Because I also want to be able to note these questions, if I can operate my computer so that I can actually type these things in. And then we're going to be classifying them as well under kind of environmental, noise, quality of life, and traffic. But those are all good points, and that's the type of thing that we do want to discuss tonight and get in the list of questions. So we're going to come back to that, I promise you.
All right, we're going to need a lawyer, I think.
And that's, and we may, that's a good point, because we may need a lawyer once we really sink our teeth into this application. But we may also then need the corresponding consultants and experts as well for traffic, noise, and environmental. So that's going to be a little bit bigger of a discussion here. So we will come back to that.
So far as I'm concerned, I know you can't divide a building in a subdivision. They're going to be leasing, MTA is going to be leasing property that's subdivided, and then they're going to be leasing part of another, of the building as well. So they're going to be involved. All right.
Okay. So hold that and make sure that we get that in the list when we get to the brainstorming, Judy.
Okay.
Okay, so I just wanted to kind of walk through, hopefully you got a lot of bits and pieces out of that video. And again, we encourage you to do two things. To rewatch the video and pick up on a number of points there that may be concerning. But also, we really encourage you to go to the city website and actually read the documents that are part of the application. We're not suggesting that you read a 285-page traffic study, though. Most of that is just all very technical engineering stuff. It's meant to razzle-dazzle the commissioners. In fact, ENNA would submit that any application that a traffic engineer is saying has no significant impact or an adverse impact would not require 285 pages to support that. So we do encourage you to read the documents. We've posted the links and they're always on the city website. But just to highlight a few things before we talk about what some of the concerns are. And again, Charles, just if there's a pressing thing on chat where I need to clarify something before we continue, but if it's a concern or question.
Yeah, there were a couple questions. The first one is at the 4-minute 38-second mark of the video. When they showed the map, it was outdated and did not show the Heron Court and most of the Heron Road, which runs right up against the rails in the Norden site.
Okay, so let's get that on the list as well when we get to the brainstorming as a concern.
And someone missed the hours of operation of the site that they proposed? Yep,
and that may be, I don't know if I have it here. Yes, from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. And that's why one of our concerns is the traffic during school drop-offs and also school and rush hour. There is the potential for weekend activity, but it would depend on if they have emergency events or special projects underway. So two things I want to clarify before we get into some of this little bit more detail. Originally, one of the uses that we thought could be here is a transportation maintenance hub where they might be storing hundreds of like regional buses and things for transportation. Another use that we thought it could be is transportation maintenance, where they're actually bringing vehicles of all sorts and types and sizes in to actually do maintenance and cleaning of them. This application is neither. As you heard, it's an application where they're going to have their own transportation vehicles there, and there'll be a number of their own employees who are coming in the morning, leaving their cars there for the most part, and then getting into MTA vehicles and being routed out to their assigned routes and jobs. And they need to be more specific on the number of vehicles, the types of vehicles, how many employees per vehicle going out. And you heard the traffic person say that as they present more of this plan, they'll be presenting more of those details. Again, this preliminary review was only to share enough to have the commission authorize the peer review of the traffic study. So this adaptive reuse, and Judy had a good point, there's 113,000 square feet of the existing building. Now, if mostly these are vehicles that are going to be outside, and then you're going to have some directors and managers and foremen and things that operate out of the building for assignments, there's still a huge part of that building then. When you go into the engineering plans, when you review this, you'll see that there's tens of thousands of square foot of office space. So the applicant, by the way, the use is going to be the MTA, but the applicant is actually the current owners, called Norwalk Center. And what you're not seeing here is a co-applicant name of Benaroff Company. Now, if that sounds familiar to a whole bunch of you here, Benaroff Company is the group that originally applied 2 years ago for the, or maybe it's more than that now, for the massive distribution warehousing facility at Norden Place. That you know, that ultimately, because of the public outcry around that, they ultimately withdrew that application. But this is the same firm that's looking to purchase that building and then to have it for multi-use. To answer that question to begin with, though, that building is already zoned and approved for use as offices. The question there would be, do they intend to lease most of it for offices, and then would they have to come back with applications for the office space? And the question there then would be, how many employees, how many more cars, what are the hours of operation, etc. The another point to make here regarding the vehicles and the 150 employees, you may have seen in the press and also on social media that a lot of people have a positive view of this application because it will have 150 jobs. But as best we can tell, none of these are new jobs. These are existing jobs with the MTA and simply being transferred from elsewhere. And we're going to get some more information on that. That's going to be one of our questions. Is this shutting down the Stamford maintenance facility and all those workers are coming to Norwalk? Are they consolidating from, I think they said 6 divisions, but where are these, where do they operate out of now? And where would since these employees already exist, where would they be coming from? Because we think the traffic study should take into account how many people are going to be getting off exit 16 or coming down Route 136 to be able to get to this site. In addition to the outdoor storage of the vehicles, they also are going to have storage of a lot of their materials. And as you can see here, the large steel pieces of rail, ties, tie plates, lag bolts, plastic, steel pipe, etc., and along with the parking. So I believe, and Diana, we can look into this as to whether or not what you're seeing being loaded there now is related to MTA, or if any of it is related to Walkbridge. They do intend to have steel fabrication operation there. They identify it as the lower level space of the existing structure. And I think that we need to take a look at the plans, but it's on our question list about, is that lower level actually below grade? And whether it is or not, we would have a concern with whatever the environmental impacts are of steel fabrication, and also the potential for noise pollution as well. And I'm only highlighting a few of these things here for you. They intend to operate this Mondays through Fridays. It could be, like I said, it could be for emergency events. They might have weekend personnel there, and they anticipate the terminal being open from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. So one of the things that we need to do is compare that to other activities in the area at those hours, and especially to the fact that there are 3 schools and multiple daycare, I think, still on Strawberry Hill. But also, we don't think that their traffic analysis, much like their prior application for the distribution and warehousing, their traffic study doesn't take into account enough of the peripheral area. They're going down to Fitch and Myrtle again, but they're not coming out to East Avenue, for example, and understanding what the impact is of the traffic coming from the highway. So you can see as we go through this, I'm sure you guys are already formulating a ton of questions and concerns to get to the list here. Okay, so here's the biggie, and this is no surprise, of course. When you're looking at a traffic study, I don't care if it's 40 pages or 285 pages, like I think this one is, what you really want to try to do is get to the executive summary of that study, where they'll highlight things that are really kind of written in layman's terms that we mere mortals can understand. But one of the most important paragraphs that you'll always come to is stable traffic flow. And this is where we use the proverbial no significant impact. As you know, there's been no development in Norwalk that apparently has had any significant impact, but it's hard to move around the city as it is. So their conclusion, of course, was that it's not going to adversely affect pedestrian and vehicular safety. It's not going to conflict with the pattern of highway circulation. And highway in that term, I believe, it is in reference to including all the local streets versus a limited access highway like I-95. And they also contend that it won't increase traffic congestion to a level of service that's considered unacceptable by the commission. Okay, so what does that mean? So when they're looking at level of service, they're looking at the amount of time that a car is potentially stopped at stop signs and red lights. And they would already have analyzed what the level of service is. I think it goes A, B, C, D in terms of how quickly cars, how many cars queue up, and then how quickly they move through those intersections. And what they're looking to do is to say that it's not going to diminish the level of service, or it's not going to diminish it to a point considered unacceptable by the commission. And so you guys that have been involved in this stuff for a long time, you already know that that's a very subjective analysis by the commission. So it's something we're going to be looking at closely. And when you go into the details of the traffic report, you see each one of the intersections in the level of service. And then in addition, but besides them saying there's no significant impact on traffic operations, they're recommending some roadway improvements, like don't block the box intersections at Strawberry Hill and Beacon and Norden Place, some radar feedback signs along the route, directional signage to route traffic to I-95. I'm not sure if they've identified that signage yet in that plan. The study is huge, so we have to take a look at that. And then something that we always request that should be required anyway is a kind of a post-mortem traffic study following the improvements and the occupancy of the proposal. Although once it's fully operational, there's little that you can do at that point. So this is as you know, this is a concern for us because there's going to be a comparison made by many people. We call it the not as bad as something else comparison, and the it's better than nothing comparison. So you're going to see commissioners, staff, members of the public, the applicants themselves, etc., are all going to look to compare this to the heyday of when Northrop Grumman operated out of that site. At one time, they had 3 shifts, so it was round the clock, and they had, I've seen estimates of 3,000 to 5,000 workers going in and out of those shifts. We contend that that's kind of a moot point because there's no application that's going to come before this commission that would ever have an operation of that magnitude. Those types of businesses don't exist, and they're not, or they're not relocating to Connecticut. And we don't think that it's a fair observation to make because it's something that's not likely to happen, and that operation closed down decades ago. The types of operations that were in there subsequent, like Bigelow Tea and Catherine Gibbs School and Talc, I think was in there. The high-end travel agency. None of those contributed traffic that would have this type of impact. So we're concerned that 600 car trips may be nothing compared to what was there, but certainly for something that could have been, we don't think it should be a consideration. And because of the traffic situation in East Norwalk right now, adding another 600 car trips is something that's definitely significant, especially in this part of the neighborhood and in that neighborhood. So what we want to do now is we want to open this up. I'm going to see if I have that little chart that I just made that I could put in Word and then reshare my screen. And then we want to open this up. We can start with the chat, or we can alternate back and forth between chat. And I'll explain what we're going to do in a second as soon as I get this this document open. So hang on one second. So I'm still in the presentation, but I think now that I can actually type and share this at the same time, even though you're going to see my icons and my side menu over here. Let me just see if I can move this over a little bit. Maybe make this a little bit bigger. Okay. So what we want to do is we want to start compiling a list of questions and concerns and suggestions, etc., coming in from ENNA, and you certainly can send stuff in on your own as well. And we want to, this is something that we can start tonight, and then we can send into the commission and to staff, and then we can continue to add to this. I want to make it clear that most of the stuff that's probably going to end up on the list from you folks and from ENNA board are going to be the types of things that we would have much preferred to have the discussion with city staff and the applicants prior to them applying for this. Now, to be fair, after they applied, I do want you to know that Attorney Suchi did reach out to me and offered to meet with ENNA, but I respectfully declined because when they applied, they actually set into motion the statutory time clock I mentioned that works against us. And because the application was filed, mostly complete because it had engineering, their site plan application, the civil stuff, and the traffic study, meeting with them would actually have been what we call a check the box exercise. They've already applied. They already know what they're going to do. We're not interested in talking to developers after the fact about what color, their signage is going to be. Stuff like that. It's just not meaningful. And we certainly didn't want ENNA to be used as a check the box of, oh, we met with ENNA and, we're going to change a few things based on their feedback. So that's why it's happening this way. We prefer that it doesn't happen that way. We'd like to be more collaborative. But unfortunately, that hasn't happened in this case, despite our best efforts. So what we've decided to do then is to send these questions into staff. They can go back to the applicants with the list, and they've done this many times in the past for us. They submit the list of questions that they can't answer into the applicants, and they require them to answer them. And at the same time, the commission will also be seeing all of this, and we'll have some, and hopefully the commission will be inspired by your comments and questions and concerns to ask these questions themselves of the applicants. Okay, so Charles.
Yes.
Okay, so why don't we can take somebody who has a hand raised up again, and bear in mind that I can't really see that.
Okay, I don't see any hand. Okay, Judy put her hand up again, but we
Okay.
do have stuff in chat.
Okay, let's take a chat or two first, and then Judy, we're going to come back to you, I promise.
Okay, so I'm going to add on to this question a little bit. Liz Succi mentioned in the beginning of that meeting that the neighbors were notified 10 days before of this application. And what I'm adding to this question is, what is the range of the neighbors? How many blocks? What's the scope of how many people were notified? And is there a way to get a record of who was notified?
Excellent. Okay, so first of all, the record is required to be turned into the city. It is a part of the documents that are on the city website. You can go and you can see the list. The list comprises the owners of the property. That's important to know, because whenever you have apartment buildings and condominiums and there are potential renters, they are at the mercy of the property owner or their landlord to let them know something is going on. That's number one. Almost all of the applicants comply statutorily only to the letter of the law in terms of notifications. And the letter of the law for a notification is abutters to the property, those that physically abut the parcel in question, and those that adjoin it. And anything that's, and this is very specific, anything that is directly across the street. So that's the letter of the law. We often ask for applicants to expand that out, but there's nothing that requires them to, and therefore they don't comply with the spirit of the law. I'll add as a editorial piece here that across the country, many communities, they require applicants to notify more broad than just the abutters and the across the street, based on the size of a parcel, the use of a parcel, or how controversial it's likely to be. But Norwalk has not caught up with that mentality yet. And the list is in, I think I just said this, the list is in the documents on the city website page that has this application, so you can see all of the property owners that were notified. The notification generally, too, is just a very simple notification. It would not give anyone, I think you guys have seen these before, it usually doesn't put anything in there that would raise anyone's interest other than to say, we're applying for a site plan review for a transportation terminal for the MTA. They put the bare minimum in there. And very often, they don't even really put in enough information on where to get more information as well. The other thing they're required to do generally, and I have to check this on a site plan review, is they have to put a placard at the property. The new zoning regulations just finally strengthen those for us, so that the placards would be required. They have to be at a minimum size that can be seen from the road, and they have to be on any side of a parcel that is parallel with a city street. But anyway, I spoke too much about that. Go ahead, somebody.
Okay, so
educate as I go.
So it's safe to say that the condominium nearby, which I believe is Avalon, is it Avalon?
Yeah, so Avalon is the or I forget the new name of them there now. So yes, the property management company or the owners there were notified, but not every renter. And the condominiums that are on Norden Place, the actual condominiums, those property owners were notified. So you can see the list going down, like, at the actual addresses and the the names of the owners and their addresses. Many are absentee owners as well.
Okay, to your knowledge, do you know if any of them spoke out on this application?
Not yet, because this application was just recently filed, and city staff has not begun putting public comments on there because the public hearing hasn't been scheduled, but they normally post. I do know that there are. Let me back up a second. We do have ENNA folks on our email list and members who are both in the Avalon complex and in the condominiums, and Heron and the other streets where the single families are that are across from that parcel as well. So they're on our email list, so they're aware of this, and I'm not quite sure yet who may have raised some concerns. They may be waiting to actually see the review. And by the way, even though we encourage people to read everything and start sending in concerns and stuff, it's sometimes helpful to wait until watching the actual applicants actually present all of this. The flip side of that is normally way too late then to be influential by the time that comes around, and how quickly they schedule the public hearing.
Okay. We had someone who wrote that they have concerns about the outdoor gas storage area. Obviously, with so many vehicles, they're going to have on-site gas storage, and what that actually means to the wetlands there.
Okay, I think, and when I read through this, I believe that they specifically said that they're not going to have gasoline available on site for the vehicles, that they would be utilizing gas stations, I guess. I don't know if they have gas cards or whatever, but I don't believe there's any gas storage on site. So let's get that down there so that we can specifically ask that under the environmental thing. Okay.
Okay, next would be the light fabrication. Do we know what's being fabricated there and how often?
Okay, oops, sorry. Okay. Sorry, oh my goodness, I cannot type for anything tonight. Yeah, put that into environmental and noise, right?
Right, and what
Okay.
level of pollution will be emitted from this?
Oh, from that, okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
okay, Strawberry Hill is a state designated safe route to school. With school-age children, they walk twice daily, 600 vehicles per day will be driving along the same time they walk. Is that true? And how can that volume be acceptable on a safe route to school?
okay, so we're going to have,
Are they are they
and we
traveling
probably
down?
should have safety over here too. Okay,
Yeah.
so an important thing here, and I'll get this down here. Hang on one second. So not only is that a safe route to school, it means actually part of that designation means that there was a boatload of money that was funded and is funded to try to make that a safe route to school. One of the things, I think I mentioned this earlier, that we need to check is the school hours of Nathan Hill, Narragansett, and what's going to be Norwalk High School, to see how these correlate to the 7 a.m. and the 4 p.m. because there's also after school activities and buses and pickups. But the last go around, we actually had a count of the daycare centers on Strawberry Hill and in that general area. And we also need to be cognizant of that, not necessarily for people walking, but for drop-offs and the hours of operation. So we'll add that. We already have this on the list, but we'll add it in here so that people see it. And then do you want to go to Judy or somebody with their hands raised, and we'll come back and forth to?
Yeah, sure. Judy, accept the prompt.
Yeah, Diane, I'm gonna have to send you an email on most of this. I'm very confused though about why they're putting in an application for subdivision.
Okay.
All right, and I also don't know what the final zoning was of the Norden property, because every time
Okay, so yeah, and send me the stuff in email, Judy, but I'll answer both of those. So the subdivision, I got kind of been back and forth with Steve Puckett on it. So the subdivision is an application that is by the owners to subdivide that allows them to lease and or sell portions of the parcel to other people for other uses. I think what's probably going to end up happening is Benaroff is going to be the purchaser of that property and then lease it to MTA. But in order for them to do that, according to Steve, the subdivision is required first, and then the uses within each part of the subdivision come as the applications come in.
This makes not a lot of sense to me, because if the MTA is leasing and not owning,
Mhm.
then the lease will govern what goes on there. And the zoning, you know,
Well, the leasing,
don't
but the leasing would be through Benaroff, and it's Benaroff who is same thing with the warehousing distribution. They would be required then as the owners to own that portion of the parcel. That's why there's going to be 3 distinct parcels when the subdivision goes through, and they would have 3 distinct owners. They could be the same owner, but they could be different owners, is the way I understand it.
so it's sort of like condominiumizing the property anyway.
It is, except there would have been another sort of arrangement between all of that that Steve said would require legal condominium, which is another real estate definition for this type of use. But let me do this. Let me get him to give us something in writing that's more clear.
Yeah,
And exactly
because I've
why.
never heard of subdividing a building. You lease part to one person and you lease part to another.
Well, the building is already called Part 1A and 1B. If you recall,
Right.
that was already a part of what the warehousing distribution would have been, and so that's already there. What they're subdividing is the part of the parcel that also has all of the parking with it as well.
Yeah. Well,
I'm with you, Judy. It is very confusing, because you almost want to say, why didn't a subdivision application actually have to come in before that warehousing one came in? But I will definitely, let's get this on the list and let's get him to answer it in terms that we can understand of why this is going through.
All right. The biggest thing I need to start analyzing this is what zone this property ended up in.
So 3 changes happened all at once, and we can, I could talk to you offline on these as well. So prior to all of this, there was the actual TOD and EVTZ stuff that was going on. And as you recall, Norden wasn't part of that consideration. But then the city undertook what's called the industrial zone study. And so that's where they made, it had previously been listed as restricted industrial.
Right.
It was changed to, I believe, industrial 2. And then in the zoning regulations rewrite that just got approved at the end of last year, you may recall, they further restricted the industrial uses there, and they designated it as a special district light industrial. So I can send you all 3 of those so that you can see what they were and what they are now. The zone that Attorney Suchi came in under is the industrial 2, I want to say.
So it's not the special district light industrial, because
No, because that was not in effect until the 19th, and she got this in on the 14th. By design, we imagine. So, there's a reason why she got it in on the 14th.
yeah, but the application. All right. If the approval is after the zoning, I'm not sure that works.
Well,
So,
it's based on the timing of the application. So even if she's applying for something that would be either impossible or less desirable under the new zoning, it doesn't really matter, because she met the deadline to apply under existing regulations as of the 14th.
All right, well, that's part of why I think we need to talk to a lawyer. I know that that's what you're saying, but in my mind,
Mhm.
it doesn't work. All right. I mean, because what's the purpose of zoning if somebody can get around it?
Well, she's not getting around it technically. What she's doing is taking advantage of an existing regulation prior to the change. And for all the folks that followed the zoning regulation rewrite process, Steve Kleppen was upfront on a number of occasions to say that he knew that there were developments that were going to be in the, pending, where the developers were going to do an analysis of whether it was better for them to apply under existing regulations or wait for the new ones to go in. And there's nothing legally that would prevent them from, those considerations on the timing of when they would appeal. Now, is some of,
Did a zoning regulation on this property ever go into effect other than the special purpose, the special district?
Yes, the industrial, right, the change from restricted industrial over to industrial, I forget what it was, industrial 1 or 2. I just want to put this in here, timing of application.
Right. Last I heard, it wasn't, it was left out still.
Yeah, but I guess, Judy, what I'm saying, I don't want to belabor it though, is that it doesn't matter if, now what we could contend is that Steve Kleppen specifically put something in or out, knowing that there was a pending application, but that probably still doesn't even meet any kind of a legal, something that wouldn't be considered.
All right, well, let's not talk about this now, because this is not what a lot of people, I think, on the call are concerned about.
Okay, thanks, Judy. And we can do it offline, but we'll add it to the list, and then people will be aware of what the concerns are.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. My legal eagle over there, Judy. I don't know what I'd do without you. Thank you. Okay.
Okay, let's back up to the first one, the outdoor gas storage. If it's not on site, will the MTA crew be lining up on East Avenue to gas up?
Yep. Okay. Where the vehicles are leaving in, presumably.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's one of the things we can ask, because one of the things that we can say is that they're required to gas up from wherever they're leaving from, instead of here, kind of as a condition, to return with a full tank from where they're coming from. No, I don't know if we can do that.
Well, that'd be hard to enforce.
That would be, yeah, super hard to enforce. But let's get it out there, because then it's going to be, East Ave and the 3 gas stations there.
Right, and that is rush hour by the train station also.
Yeah, for sure. And if they're coming in, presumably they don't have to gas up their own personal vehicle, but it's when they're heading out. That's another thing that we want to know, is the timing of when they arrive at 7 p.m. What does normal dispatch mean? I know in my own business that can be an hour or two. Okay, next one.
This is something to be concerned about. People who are renters nearby have been receiving false information that if they want to speak up or ask questions, to go to click and report. And that is not the proper channel for this. Is there anything we could do to raise awareness?
Okay, first of all, if somebody could, when you say that people are being given that information, if there's anyone who has that's willing to share it privately with me through ENNA, so that we can identify the source. I don't know if we're talking about people speculating on social media, or if you got something from someone at City Hall, if you want to answer that now or not.
Okay.
But I can clarify one thing though, Charles, is that if you see something on the property going on there today, that you have a concern with, then yes, going to click and report through the city's customer service department is a good idea for a few reasons. One, it gets registered into the system and it gets assigned a ticket number so that it can be tracked. And also, it then gets shared out to the responsible enforcement and departments. So from there, it could go to planning and zoning. It could go to police and fire. It could go to the health department. It could go to the building department. So if what you're talking about is stuff that's on site there now that you have a concern with, then the best thing to do is to go to click and report. If what somebody was advising you to do is if you have concerns about this application, like traffic or noise, I'm not sure that that's the best avenue because that's not really going to that's not going to get to the Planning and Zoning Commission, I don't think.
I'm sorry, Diane. This is Diana. I'm sorry.
Hi.
Hi. So when I was walking, I saw some people and they lived in I forget, it's the Avalon apartment, whatever the new name is. And they had said that they asked the front desk because they had concerns, and the front desk had recommended that they use the click and request. So I'm just wondering if maybe there's something that we can share with the front desk at, at that office, just so that they are aware of meetings and they know where, what the process is and how to.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much, Diana, for that. That definitely clarifies it. And the other thing is the people that we have in Avalon. Why can't I think of the new name of that? It's driving me nuts. Somebody please tell me. But in any event, we do have people there that are always willing to do up a little flyer and slip it under all the doors. So that serves two purposes. One, it gets people, knowledgeable about this, and so they can follow it. And then two, we can clarify with the front desk and then tell them, what they should be doing.
Okay, there was a question after, I guess, the MTA lease is over. Do we know what happens to that property?
Okay, so we're talking about two things here, I think. So the lease that's underway right now is the DOT, the Connecticut Department of Transportation, for the purposes of the multiple walk bridge projects that are going on in the area. The MTA, I think if that ends up being a lease, is going to be a long-term lease, not something that's just related to the work that's going on. But we should clarify that, and if it is a long-term lease, I'm expecting something like that probably, would be like a 20-year lease or something, or a 100-year lease. And then once their lease is over, the second part of that question is that any use that is currently allowed or at that time would be allowed could come in and apply for a new use there. Either something that's as of right or a special permit. Okay. Oh, I see a lot of stuff in chat. Come on, Charles.
Okay. The next one, there's some concerns that that since Norden actually sits on higher ground, is there anything in place like fencing or walls to hide the eyesores of the materials?
Yeah. And we'll also get clarification then too on natural or what do they call it?
I guess I would go for soundproofing as well.
Yeah, so there'll be some reports that are in there regarding landscaping, buffering, shielding, stuff for both noise and also environmental. Okay.
Okay. Has the applicant defined the fleet route yet?
Interesting. I haven't seen it yet, but honestly, my eyes glaze over with 285 pages of traffic stuff. It could be in there. I'll take a quick look, but I think it's quicker if we get this question to Clef and have them answer it for us. Because one of the questions we have is, are they actually replacing the Stamford maintenance terminal that's down on, I don't know if that's State Street or where that is down there in Stamford, but the MTA has a big terminal down there, or at least a medium-sized terminal. So where are these 6 divisions coming from, and are they replacing, does that terminal close, et cetera? So where do these fleets go to? Okay.
Okay, when they say that the vehicles will stop at 4 p.m., is that true? What about deliveries of UPS or,
So 4 p.m. is their general workday, so they expect people to be back then around that time frame. I guess we should ask, how far out is the route as well, as part of this. And then they do define deliveries. I believe they said 2 tractor trailers per week. And the other materials might be coming in like standard stuff coming back on the fleet trucks, which are variety sizes like vans and things like that, and small work trucks. And then also UPS and FedEx.
okay, they also mentioned dump trucks. Do we know what's going to be carried in these dump trucks? Is it going to be stone, or I know there's gravel that they put down on tracks, wood ties.
Okay, yeah. I think it is listed in there somewhere, but we will get that clarified. Good question there, especially if we're dealing with, I don't know anybody here is familiar with stone dust, but not a good thing environmentally. For getting all over stuff or breathing anything in. Oops, wrong box here. Okay. Anybody have their hand raised, Charles? Or
I'm not seeing anybody at the moment.
Okay, we'll keep going through.
Diane, Rich Bonifant wants to speak, but he put in the chat he's having a hard time doing so for some reason.
Okay,
Okay.
I'll unmute him. Let me find him here. Here
We
he
okay?
is. Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
Hey, Rich.
Good evening, and obviously I'm not in the East Norwalk area, but I'm a friend of helping out whenever I can.
Thank you.
Something when you replayed the zoning application, or when the attorney was speaking, I caught something that, like, when they're saying only 1 to 2 tractor trailers per week, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I think if I heard correctly, then you need to emphasize to the zoning commission, then that's all you're allowed. Otherwise, your word is useless, right? You gave us your word that that's all it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And we're counting on that, because too many times, and you've seen it, Diane, and thanks,
Mm-hmm.
Charles, for your technical assistance here. All they want to hear is the yes word. They
Mm-hmm.
hear yes, and
Yep.
then it's a free for all after that. You promised 1 to 2 tractor trailers per week, and we are holding you to that, right? Right. And
Got it.
somebody else
Excellent point.
mentioned the other thing about safe schools, so I'm not going to belabor that one. Somebody else put that point before you, and you'll deal with that. You're on your own. But I just wanted to throw that in there. When these people come up there for the record and say something, then okay, we're holding you to your word, and you're not allowed more than that. Thanks.
Thank you, Rich. Hey, Rich. Are you still there? Yep. Can I mention the drone?
Yeah, it's yours.
Okay.
Do whatever you want with it.
Okay. So
And I'm going to go again, because I realized I didn't zoom in on things. I just gave an overall picture. I'm
Thank you.
going back. Sundays are better because there's nobody around. But
Thank you.
I'll pick up. Yeah, we'll talk about that on the side.
Okay. And so what we're talking about is Rich is just such a good friend of ENNA, I can't tell you, but one of the things that he does is if he's out flying the drone, and he's able to take some shots of areas where there's these controversial applications, he sends the drone still shots and videos into us, and we have those. One of the things, I think the benefits here now too, and especially since he mentioned Sunday, pardon me here, is that now we'll have some good before and after images as well from above, and that can tell a whole tale that you might not know from the ground as well. So thanks for that, Rich. Okay, Charles, back to
Okay,
chats.
okay. Will any of these vehicles be accessing the railroad tracks around that area? And will they be driving up and down? They're worried about signal noises.
And and I'm going to add on to that too. We can put it in the next thing. That's a really good question. Put that under other and environmental. One of the other things that we have here too, the stuff that's on our list, I'm just going to put on here so you see it, and then we'll be combining them. But we also want to know the nature of all these vehicles, because it's 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning. You guys know what I'm talking about when we say beep, beep, beep by now, I hope. So most of these vehicles we're talking about are required by law to have the reverse warning systems, and almost all of them are comprised of the beep, beep, beep. When you have an operation of this size with that type of fleet, and they're all pretty much getting dispatched at the same time and coming back at the same time, that's just a horrendous, potential quality of life issue there. Okay. Okay. More chat.
Okay, Louisa's on Heron Court. She says the MTA planted trees last year that are growing and starting to block their train in Norton View.
The MTA planted trees?
That's what it says.
Yeah, yes, they did. They did, Diane.
The MTA or the DOT? This Connecticut DOT.
And I'm pretty sure it was the MTA. Yeah, because the board here, we're at Sagatuck Landing, and I know that one of the board members worked closely with the MTA, and they're arborvitaes, and they're along the fence, and they were the ones who planted them.
Okay, and do
Oh,
you know?
Christina, I'm sorry, Christina Olson is on, and she has her hand raised. Christina, why don't you?
Oh, okay, yeah, please, because someone just reported to me yesterday or the day before that there's been a whole bunch of tree cutting over there at Norden Place. So now I want to get more information on both of these. Christina?
Can you hear me?
Hi,
Yes,
yeah.
Yeah. So the MTA, and I'm not sure if it's the MTA or the DOT, cut down basically all of the trees as part of their walk bridge. Then they had all that loud stone crushing noise.
Right.
They were in violation of their own noise ordinances.
Right.
So I pushed back. I had to get Bob Duff involved. And it was actually, I believe it was the Connecticut Walk Bridge who planted the trees, and not the MTA. The only reason why they planted it, because I had hard evidence proving that they were in their own violation from their own noise levels.
Now, did you have the police come out and monitor, or did you have
so they said that they were going to self-monitor their noise, but you could ask for those reports. Right. And then I would ask for specific times, and they just couldn't make those available. And that their one noise monitoring that was stationary was always yards away from when they were actually doing the noise.
Okay.
And I had videos and the loud noise at midnight. And this was the compromise to get those arborvitaes planted, because they basically were in violation of their own. And I believe it was the DOT. And they said that they would do it from, here to there. And of course, they didn't do it from here to there. They did it in a shorter distance than what was promised. Yeah. So, and, they didn't maintain those trees. A bunch of them died. I mean, it was... it was a lot of teeth pulling and a lot of work. They weren't exactly like, oh, we'll plant you trees, not a problem. That was
and Christina, get us on the list too. Because we would love to know about this stuff when it's going on. Because we also want the actual violations recorded as well. This should have come back to zoning as a violation as well. So, if you can keep us in the loop on anything that's going
Sure.
on over there.
And
And
this
then
was a year ago, if not 2
Okay.
years ago, with that whole stone crushing. I'm sure everyone on this call heard it.
Gotcha. Okay. All
Uh,
right. And have you observed them taking down trees? This report that I got in on a Friday in the
Uh,
area?
it's hard to keep track, you know, when
Mhm.
something's not there, right?
Right. Right.
So
Okay. Yeah.
not that I'm familiar with.
Okay. Yeah. Unless literally you see them cutting them down, you're right. You're not sure if something was there before, but I'm trying to get
Exactly.
some more information on that from the person that reported it actually. Because just to clarify if the trees are on Norden property or if they're on public property and what the purpose was there, but
And it's hard because the train tracks are technically, I believe, owned by, you know, the DOT or the MTA, not part of the Norden. And where they're cutting the
Right.
trees, it's usually, and Eversource is usually involved with cutting as well because of the power
Right.
lines.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Ready for more chats, Charles?
Okay, Mimi confirmed that there will be vehicles accessing the tracks as per the applicant.
Oh, you looked it up. Okay. Thanks, Mimi.
And that's all
You're
I have.
welcome, Diane.
That's all I have for now.
Okay. And I think because I think we had over 40 chat comments and questions. So we do get the transcript through Zoom. So I'll review that as well and have that as part of our record here for us. So if anybody wants to raise their hand as well, one of the other things too I want to bring up is there's also going to be back in line with this, the pros and cons of this application. So one of the other litmus tests I talked about is the it's better than nothing test. You've probably seen it all over Norwalk, especially on parcels where they've already torn down buildings and you have an empty dirt lot. The Planning and Zoning Commission are more, inclined to approve something that's less than desirable because their litmus test is, well, it's better than nothing. Whereas residents would, argue sometimes nothing is better than what might be going in there. One of the pros and cons one of the pros that I know is going to be brought up is this notion of 150 jobs and having those in the community. Now, there is something to be said for having people working in our community. It's certainly beneficial too if some of these jobs are Norwalk residents. But one of the benefits that you most often see is that people who are working in the community are staying in the community. So, for example, office workers or healthcare workers. So they're in the community for the whole day. And when they're in the community, they may be more likely to be going, say, to the dry cleaners or to the shoe repair man or to the local delis, any of our services and retail businesses. And so that argument, I think, doesn't really fly in the case of this application because the intent is for these folks to come in, get their assignment, get their materials, get their vehicles, and leave for the day, and then come back. And that may leave us with just the point that Mimi or someone else brought up of, then is the only benefit in the community going to be going to Getty, Shell, and Mobile and creating gridlock. So just something to keep in mind when you're thinking, yeah, we definitely want 150 jobs here. But what is the real benefit? The other thing I want to bring up is our questions on our list of the economic impact. When you're looking at using a parcel like Norden, you want to bring in something that's going to have a good environmental and economic impact on the community. And probably most of what's going to be on that site isn't going to be stuff that's taxable in terms of the property of the MTA. And I'm not even sure what the status is with the MTA, how that would work, with what the grand list, if there's any impact on increasing the grand list. while that use is there. So I'm not sure that this would have a positive impact even on the city revenues versus using that building entirely for office or research and development, where so much of it then would provide grand list revenue. Just a couple of side notes there for you. Okay. Hey, anyone else want to raise their hand or have some other stuff that's jumping out at you so far from all of this? Like I said, we'll combine this with the ENNA list we have going and then get this out to folks, and then we'll send probably in a week or so, send the initial cut of all of this into Steve Kleppen and the commission, and then hope to get some answers back and get this stuff on the radar screen there. But I know we're going to have a lot more questions as you look through things. And I did want to say, I'm not sure if I brought this up in the beginning, but we're assuming that the commission is going to deem a public hearing as being necessary, but we need to make sure that that public hearing does happen. And if it does happen, you can pencil in for now, at least May 1st is the date for that. Okay, and then our next meeting, of course, will be before that. Our next meeting is April 15th. And then a reminder that we have the shredding event on the 20th as well. Any other questions, comments, suggestions about the parcel, the application, any of the process of how this is all going to work, what you can be doing? I think I'll also mention too that the decision about whether or not we're going to need a lawyer and some experts as well will become clear over the next week or so as we do more of this review. And then we'll have to see about funding and also if we can even retain a lawyer. I think many of you know from the Cemetery Street application that there aren't many lawyers in the area that either work in the area of what's called opposition work or who don't have conflicts of interest with applicants or with business that comes before the city. But it doesn't mean that there aren't any. Judy, you have your hand raised again. Go ahead.
Just putting into, somebody said they were taking drone pictures. Could a drone picture be taken of the existing MTA and, the existing maintenance facility in Stamford?
I can check to see if that was actually Rich Bonifant. I can check to see if, I don't know if he's still on or not, if he's able to do that. In some cases, we do have to be a little bit careful with that, with how he's doing that footage just from some security type stuff, but I can check to see. And if not, there are overheads that we can kind of snippet and edit from, like Google Earth and other sources that we can use to take an overhead look at that. We did have somebody report on social media that they're familiar with that site and that they've never seen any more than 100 cars there. But the point too then, Judy, is that, are all 100 of those cars and all that work slated to come to Norwalk in addition to other places, but we can check to see.
Well, also, I assume the same type of stuff will be going on in Norwalk that was going on in Stamford, and it could give us a clue as to what the site looks like,
Yeah.
I'll try to help you out in any way I can. We'll talk offline on this one. Don't waste
everyone
else's time.
Gotcha. Thank you. Okay.
Okay, if I could jump in, I pass that station on the Metro North every day.
Oh.
And a lot of the workers actually ride the train to that site. So,
oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, there's a little drop-off section right before the Stamford station where they all get off from one car.
Mm-hmm. And I also saw actually on that site too that they have a listing of they also list the bus routes and walking routes to that terminal. I saw that the MTA lists that for workers. So thanks, Charles, for that point, because I forgot about that. We take trains, so we can assume then too that there'll probably be a percentage than maybe taking the train and then shuttle up to the site.
Yeah, so in regards to that platform, I've been on Metro North where they make that extra stop in Stamford and the MTA employees get out. Do they expect to do the same thing here at Norden? Not stop at the East Norwich train station, but stop the train right behind Norden and let them walk off.
What a good, I was actually that's a good point, because if they're looking at doing the vehicles there too, I haven't been back there, but I know that because of the nature of the work that they're doing for DOT and Walkbridge, that's a very good question. So we can add that in right here on this one too. Or access from tracks, directly from tracks, right?
Yeah, so it's two things. It's the work vehicles going onto the tracks, and when they drive up and down the tracks, so they're going to be beeping and signaling for all that noise pollution.
Right.
And then are they going to be allowing that train to make an extra pit stop, if you will, to let the MTA workers ride off behind Norden and prolonging the life of the train is running. And of course that noise as well.
So the little hub that's in Stamford where they do provide that service for the workers, are those workers are coming in both north and southbound? Or is it, you can't discern from?
I was on a northbound train once and they made that extra pit stop and I was still confused what was going on.
Okay.
And it was for the MTA workers.
Okay. I'm still going to put this in under the noise thing too. Because thanks, Christina. I forget about the vehicles on the tracks are always having to make the noise, right? For the safety.
And are they going to be limiting those hours that they're going to be on the tracks? Or, you know, as part of their, we're only working from 7 to 4, or there's on-call calls, you know, workers, are they going to be 24/7 because they have access to the tracks? So even if the issue's up in New Haven, are they going to be riding those up the rails to New Haven on the tracks in those vehicles? I don't know.
Good question. Okay. Good question.
Okay, Diana has her hand up as well.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, I mean, again, and I know the drone probably will tell the story, but I am just so taken aback at how much stuff has arrived within the last 2 weeks. And it's definitely not nursery material. It's steel and other items and huge piles of asphalt or dirt. But I'm just so taken aback. I mean, it really looks like a dump yard at this point.
Deliveries of asphalt?
It's either asphalt or dirt. I'm not 100% certain which it is.
Okay.
But it's all lined up over by the train tracks.
Does it seem like stuff from demolition and excavation?
It could,
like it's stuff that they've excavated and then they're dumping it there?
Yes, there are old, I saw a ton of stop signs and different types of like DPW signage that you see, or, you know, traffic signage. But yeah, I mean, there's an incredible amount of just stuff that lines the parking lot, from, you know, where you can enter through the gate off Winfield and then just, you know, as you go towards the back.
Okay, we'll get an answer to that. Okay.
And it most certainly, when I saw the greenhouses go up around the end of February, I emailed Brian Baker and Steve Kleppen. That was February 27th. And then I revisited March 8th, and the amount of stuff that entered in that short period of time is just unbelievable.
Okay. All right, we'll try to see what we can find out with that. I think what they're, you know, doing is I on the nursery, I mean, there's an argument to be saying they jumped the gun, you know, and assuming it was going to go through. But because the subdivision is imminent, we kind of understand that there's no other permit. The permit to actually operate it was already granted over the counter. So that's not surprising that they're looking to do that move, and get that stuff in there and start the greenhouses in the building. But all of this stuff ahead of the MTA, of the actual site plan review, is, you know, in my mind, I can't imagine anyone deeming this anything other than a violation right now, which means they would be in violation right now. Because they're putting stuff on there for a use that's not, that hasn't been approved under a review.
Right, unless it's walk bridge, like was mentioned earlier.
If it's walk bridge, nothing we can do. Yeah. Except to get to the walk bridge people. I mean, we can definitely have Stephanie, reach out to Stephanie and the walk bridge people and see if they can try to get a better handle on this. But, I think they're basically going to tell us this is the nature of the beast with it. But there's probably some improvements they can make, in terms of where they're putting stuff and how they're stacking it. And if they're doing anything with dirt or asphalt that's coming from excavation, that type of stuff, I believe by law has to be covered, like with big tarps and things. Like you may recall all the stuff that the highway stuff was doing when the mall was being built, and they had like that off ramp there, and they had these big piles of dirt and debris from the highway. But that stuff is supposed to be covered so that you're not getting any, fine particulate pollutants coming out of there, and dirt and debris.
Right. There was also a lot of vehicles there too that weren't occupied.
Okay, like trucks and things, or just regular cars and
some trucks, yes.
I'm just taking some notes here because I want to see what's going on with that.
Okay. Also, on a side note, they did change the sign that was full of typos.
They did. So is the sign just still up there, but now it's fixed?
It's
my
fixed.
gosh, you can't make this stuff up.
And right next to it says no trespassing.
Yeah, of course, of course. I wish I had put that typo laden notice up in the email. That would have been funny to do that. But I think too people should be prepared. I imagine that these folks are going to come back at some point and look to change the name of Cemetery Street to something that's more conducive to their PR and marketing efforts, or whatever the ultimate name of that property is going to be. And my advice would be that we should stand up and fight that and make sure it stays Cemetery Street. Okay. So now we're just into our regular questions, comments, suggestions. Always a bunch of stuff going on. We did have a little bit of a break in between here with a breather, but now we're back at it with zoning applications. I think we were hoping to try to get into some stuff that's a little bit more positive and proactive with ENNA when this kind of crept up on us. But, hopefully we can participate more in stuff and be more proactive and constructive. I mentioned in the email too, I think that the housing study, that's a collaboration between the city and the redevelopment agency, is continuing. And I'll be attending a stakeholder interview. It's a week from tonight, I believe, with the consultants representing ENNA to provide some feedback, see where they're going. My sense, and I think someone told me this, is that there really wasn't a whole lot of responses to their survey. Very, very poor response. So they're having to reach out a little bit more there. So we'll be following that as well. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you staying on. Thank you.